Monda. It has already been a year. His Excellency President Ruto's foreign trips have been a hot topic of discussion among many Kenyans. We went to the streets to ask Kenyans what they make of these trips. Let's sample some of their views.
Zile matripu president wetu anaenda zinatuumiza kwa sababu hiyo pesa ingestahili kuleta mashinani tupate maendeleo. Ni ile pesa ya mwananchi. Kwa hivyo tunaomba hizo matripu zake afunguze.
Hiyo pesa atutolee kitu fulani tunjue hiyo ametutengea kando kuliko kutoa hiyo pesa ukuwe unapata hiyo nafasi ya kwenda ng'ambo. Sasa yeye kama rais yetu anjue inatuuma.
Hata akienda nje mara anaenda anakopa, na yeye mwenyewe alituambia hata kopa pesa yote.
Hii malipo ya hiyo pesa italipwa namna gani? Ni wananchi watalipa ama ni yeye pesa yake? Hizo matrip hizo pesa anatumia zingechangia economy yetu ya Kenya.
Mama boga alisaulika na hizo pesa zingewekezwa kwa hizo sekta zote, kila mwananchi angefaidika.
Ningemwambia siku sitakwisha na akuje tena kwetu, atatuambiaje?
Sisi tumesubiri tujue ya kwamba kama ziara ambaye anafanya kule nje iko na matunda. Si tunaomba ya kwamba matunda ive mapema tuanze kukula hiyo matunda. Nasema kama watu wa mkokoteni tumesaulika sana, na sisi ndio nguzo kubwa ya hii serikali. Sisi ndio tulimbeba tukampeleka pale.
Blessed anatufanyia mambo mazuri, na naposikia anaenda nchi za nchi anatuletea manufaa mazuri, anaenda kungangania nchi yake, na kwa hiyo siasa anaenda kutembea nje, anaenda kungangania kwa sisi.
Kumbe huyu jamaa alikutoka juzi, rais anaitwa Uhuru, kumbe alikuwa anafanya kazi mzuri, lakini rais leo, tuko naye leo, ametufanya vibaya sana. Hata juzi niliona budget tumeumia. Saguja hata atupie kitu kidogo tu, sasa tumesema haswa nini ndio tumeteseka.
Ziara za rais naona mimi zikinipea mafanikio mema, kwa kuwa yeye anaenda kutafuta uhusiano na mataifa mengine.
Si kama wananchi tunapata nini? Manake wenzetu hapa, kina mama, kina baba ambao wanafanya kazi bodaboda, mama mboga, wale ambao aliwaahidi, tunaona vitu vinafanywa kinyume.
Alienda USA akakuja na pesa, tuone ile kitu inafikia mwananchi. Uwezi nunua unga, uwezi nunua sukari, na tuna watoto. My friend, kuja hapa tuletee pesa hapa chini mara moja.
My friend, kuja tulete pesa hapa chini.
Yes.
You know, I was laughing. There's a gentleman who was speaking there who was saying, Afadhali Rais Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes.
And I remembered you posted about the guy who was in court yesterday, the guy who tried grabbing the budget briefcase.
Yes.
And you were talking about how Kenyans used to be a happy lot and now we are angry.
Yes. In fact, in 2003, we were voted globally as the most optimistic, the most hopeful of nations. And down the line now, almost 20 years, we are the most desperate, shooting our judges, our magistrates and judges in court, getting shot and, doing all manner of things that you don't expect. We are actually now a desperate nation. And I think President Ruto should approach now this country from a psychological perspective. Because when people begin to get disillusioned, even talking about development, production and all is all in vain. We are coming from multiple crises and we are behaving as if it's normal. We started all the way from long droughts, 4 years, the longest in almost a century. Then we came to COVID-19. You don't forget the rock-cast invasion that ate all the greens at that particular time. And now we come into an economic depression, to an election that was heavily contested and very expensive. And here we are now behaving like Kenya will just grow. It can't just grow. We need a Marshall Plan. And the Marshall Plan here is the government first observe a shoestring budget, frugal, to the point that we save every dime. Two, we be strategic about our national interest. This idea of saying we are aligned to X or Y is nonsensical. We align with everybody who can help us achieve our national interest. That's all. If it is those who are going to bring development. Finally, we focus on production. We are now focusing on exchange. Mafuta ya kupikia huko, matrofali huko kutoka Turkey, kwingine. We have become an importing government. When are we going to produce something we can export? And when you look at the way we are investing, you know, if it's roads, if it's railways, we need to open up this country so that people can do their own thing. But what we are beginning to see is business as usual, and the people are suffering. So we begin to see these acts of desperation. And as a result, I think we need to get the president to sit down. He need a retreat himself in order to think about change gears, because the people that we are governing are now desperate. And nobody has done a serious assessment of the impact of COVID-19 and other tragedies in order to know how now to respond to the citizen in the post-COVID era. We are just doing everything routinely. The budgets, I mean, we talk about taxes. Oh, we are going to finance our own government with our own taxes. That's not what China is doing. That's what North America is doing. That's what Japan is doing. People are borrowing in order to lift the economy, to lift production, to lift so that then you can, after we make profit, you pay. No civilization anywhere in history, and I stand to be guided. I have my professor of history here who taught me history. No civilization, no empire has ever grown on taxes. Mm-hmm. You can never industrialize, you can never grow, you can never progress on taxes. All the time you have to do exchange. You borrow here, you pay here. You borrow here, you pay here.
Professor Macharia, somebody is whispering in my ear that inaka ulifundisha kila mtu. But you know, what would you say to the president? Because these are difficult economic times. And is this like, you hear the Treasury Cabinet Secretary on Thursday say we are going to cut back on foreign trips, and that very night the president flies out. Do you think they could handle the situation better? Is it a communication issue? What is it? It's
an imagery issue. You have a disconnect between the president's words and the president's deeds. And people are noticing that. You say one thing and the other is happening. Eh? And there is an impression that he does not listen to advice very well. And if he has a problem listening to advice, then things keep on going wrong, and he does not seem to see it. The claim that his trips are beneficial to the country, people are waiting to see those benefits. Okay? There's been a lot of talk about how good it is. Fair enough. Where are they? When he went to Washington the other day, there were a lot of promises made. People are still waiting to see. Everything is to wait to see. He just gone to Italy, but that G7 was something about Ukraine. That was the main thing. Eh? It had nothing to do with Africa. Giorgio Meloni had already said what Ruto said, that they were going to do that. Eh? So what is he coming back with? And people say, yeah, okay. Then go to Geneva. Is it Geneva? To talk about Ukraine. And then we'll say, what's the connection between us? And, so there is a disconnect between his words and the perceived delivery. And so he has a problem of image. Can he be trusted? The contradictions that have emerged in less than 2 years between the promises and the whatever are glaring. So when C.S. Njuguna on Thursday was saying how he's going to have a budget that will do this, and people say, do you live in this world or some other world? And there is a belief, right or wrong, that that budget is crafted by some foreigners at the Treasury. They're called the IMF and the World Bank advisors. That's a belief. And it's that these advisors are not just in the Treasury. They're almost everywhere in every department, government office. Eh? They are the ones determining things. Now, can the public be persuaded that that's not true? It's not possible. Because we have had people in the Treasury and other places saying the World Bank told them. or the IMF told them. So who is running the country? It's not Kenyans. And the question is, we did not elect the IMF and the World Bank. What are they doing telling Kenya what to do? And that very surrender, or what appears to be surrender of sovereignty to some foreign entity, is very disturbing. Right now, Kenyans are very angry. And you can see that the manifestation of that anger almost everywhere. They are very unhappy. It's an explosive situation that may need to be contained. And that's what the president needs to call himself to a meeting in order to say what's going on. Actually, even within his own party, there's chaos. Not forget about the people from outside the party. Within the party, there's chaos. And he should be asking, why is this the case? Maybe he needs better advisors than the one he has. But then he said his advisors are incompetent anyway.
Dr. Maluki, in him, with these world leaders, we could say, now Africa has a seat at the table. He can speak directly to these leaders. He can make an impact. But there are those who take the view that, hey, you're causing up to the West. Are you now their puppet? How do you balance that? I mean, how do you walk that tightrope?
Okay, even before I go there, I want to revisit what the professor said about the state of the nation. There is evidence that people are not happy, that Kenya is actually in a transition that which may lead to a lot of misunderstanding. And we need a very, very strong leadership because what, in my opinion, I see is that there's where Ruto has his vision on where he wants to take Kenya. But the Kenya he is leading is somehow very far behind. And this gap is causing a lot of friction. As in those in the Bible, when Moses was delivering the Israelites, they were very pessimistic. And so I think this is where we have the pull and push, as in, are Kenyans patient to wait for this promise? Or is that promise going to burst along the way? And then, so I think that's where I want to start from. So this aspect of Kenya being disillusioned because of hard times, it could be something which is outside Ruto's current ability to tame. However, what his vision is and what he promises to do could have a future, benefit if we are able to reach that end. So now, what he's been able to do, and especially with the foreign trips, one of the things that Africa has been asking for is to have space in the big table where African issues can be discussed. In my opinion, I think his ability to sit with the G7, his ability to sit with other world leaders, including having been invited at the State House in the US, that gave a very big opportunity for an African voice in global governance. And he has pushed this agenda. Whether it is accepted or not, at least an African voice is being heard. The African agency is what has been missing all along, where Africa has always been taken as being at the periphery. Now, this Ruto, who is now operating at international level, is forgetting that the Kenyans maybe have not reached there. I'm sure he could be crying that, can the Kenyans understand me? Because you guys, I want us to cross the bridge. Because we've been there, we want to be in the league of the big boys. And so one thing I admire about him is the ability to push. And I want to pray for him that actually, because it is in the interest of every Kenyan to be able to move to, to high-income state. And this can only happen when we have aggressive diplomacy. We must go there, go here, and talk to different investors. And this is exactly what I think is the objective of Ruto's aggressive diplomacy. And that's why I wish it can happen. However, the situation on the ground is really desperate. And how it reconciles with the populace is what maybe will be his test of governance.
All right. Professor Monda, conclude this conversation for us tonight. Where is the disconnect? The president, it's not the first time the president has had to address the foreign trips. He's done so repeatedly. Gachagua has spoken up in his defense. Isaac Moura, in trace language, spoke up in the president's defense. And they said, you guys, can you not see the amount of investment, the number of jobs, Professor Monda? But Kenyans are saying, Allah, we are not feeling this impact.
There are no jobs.
We are not feeling this.
No jobs.
There are no jobs.
But there are digital jobs, Prof. Anyway, sorry, Professor Monda.
They can come on one day.
But Kenyans are saying, how I feel kwa ground. Where is the disconnect? Is it as Dr. Maluki is saying, Kenyans are just difficult people. When you told them wear seat belts, they fought you. When you tell them you have to paint your buses yellow, they fight you, they take you to court. Where is the disconnect?
I think the disconnect is the inability of the executive, the president's office and foreign affairs to really articulate and tie in these foreign trips with Kenya's core national interests. So, for example, you cannot reform the international financial system without the G7. So this can be a very interesting nexus to show Kenyans that Kenya needs to be at the table if you're going to reform the international credit system through the G7, because a lot of the taxes we're paying, the increases in taxes we're having are to pay these foreign loans. So you can't reform the international system without the big boys, which are the G7. A second element of this would be thinking about global supply chains. The US and the EU are really looking to decouple from China, meaning to have alternative supply chains to China. Kenya is a key player in that. Now, this is part of the reason the president has to network with foreign leaders. I think a third element of that would be you cannot network with people through Zoom or through the telephone. Sometimes foreign leaders need to meet eye to eye. There's an element of a human contact. You need to shake people's hand. You need to look people in the eye. You need to have cups of coffee with foreign leaders and to talk one-on-one. That human contact is very important. And I don't really see government spokesman actually articulating that to show Kenyans that when Kenya has good relations, is in alliance with the US, and major global players, it's diversifying its debt portfolio. We don't have to rely only on the Chinese. We also have other alternative sources for financing. When we're in good books with foreign players, we can get support against Al-Shabaab. These are the cases that are not being made. So it's not just so much about the trips, but the messaging around the trips and how this impacts Kenya for the mwananchi or at the ground level. If we're able to reduce the cost of how much we're paying on foreign loans, that trickles down to how much you pay for petrol, how much you pay for unga, how much you pay for basic goods and services. I don't think that argument is being articulated.
All right, thank you very much, Professor David Monda, Professor of Political Science, City University of New York, Professor Peter Kagwanja, CEO, Africa Policy Institute, Professor Macharia Munene, historian and international relations expert. We also have in studio the chair of the Department of Diplomacy and International Studies, University of Nairobi, Patrick Maluki. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking Saturday night, but you're here helping us understand some of these issues. In case you missed the subtext on the school buses, I was joking. We take a break, but Citizen Weekend continues on the other side as I release my panelists. Thank you very much.
Bye, David.